Breaking news, we just had a very strong magnitude 6 earthquake strike north of Vancouver Island off the coast. It was magnitude 6 earthquake. It came after a 5.2, 3 hours before that, and half an hour before that a 5.7, ending with this 6.0 earthquake. So it was a swarm in the exact same area, north of Vancouver Island. The magnitude 6 earthquake, as reported by USGS, shook Canada's western province of British Columbia today, after the two slighter, weaker quakes hit just hours before. They were centered offshore in the Pacific, just off the north of Vancouver Island. Now, according to USGS, the quake happened at a depth of 10 kilometers, about 175 kilometers west of Port Hardy, British Columbia. Hours earlier, magnitude 5.7, as we said, 5.2 recorded in the same exact location. Emergency Info British Columbia reports there are no dangers of a tsunami, and there have so far been no reports of any damage from these three earthquakes. It's just, we'll see it together, it's just off the north area of Vancouver Island of Canada. That's where we had the 6.2 magnitude, and 13 hours later we had the Ridgecrest 6.5 earthquake on July 4th in the morning. This is a very active area, as we see, but 6 magnitude and 5.7, 5.2, I mean, those are big earthquakes. Now, the province of British Columbia West Coast sits on a series of faults extending around the perimeter of Pacific Ocean and the Ring of Fire, as we know, and earthquakes are common. 90% of the world's earthquakes are on the Ring of Fire, and a great many of the volcanoes. Now, we'll take a look at this map here. That's all the West Coast earthquakes. And around the area down there on the west near the US border is where we have our Vancouver Island area. This is it right here. That's the quake swarm that we had today, 5.2, 5.7, and 6.0 magnitude. I hope that's the last. We will see. Let's take a look at the maps together, because people have reportedly felt this. Let's take a look at the shake map as well. This is a beautiful map showing that blue line, all the way up to 11 o'clock position. That's Vancouver Island, that little dot that you see there, and extending that line out is where we had the quakes today. That blue line is 2,200 miles long, and it intersects at the New Madrid seismic zone. That black line is the Real Rift Zone, New Madrid seismic zone, and around the Great Lakes, that beige-looking horseshoe shape that you see is a magma body underneath the Great Lakes. There is a magma body. They don't know where it's coming from, but it's there. This is the area of the QUQKE Fault, and it's the mid-continental rift, as you can see there. That's the mid-continental rift. Lake Superior is part of the rift. It used to be a lot closer to Yellowstone in Wyoming. And that area between Yellowstone and Lake Superior was much closer at one point, about a billion years ago. Canada map, as you can see, this is it right here. This is what we had on the 18th, was a 5.4 magnitude. Alaska, but you know, that area is just along the west coast. It's not far from there. This is, it's about, 1,000 miles distance. That's the miles right there. And this is what we had today. Okay. No, that's magnitude, no, right here. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's not magnitude 6. That's not, maybe that's one that's later. Okay, 5 no, that's not it. Anyway, let's go to this. I don't know, I'm not clicking on it properly. This is it right here. It's first we had the 5.2, as you can see here. That's Vancouver Island right there, but we'll take a look at it later. And this is the 5.7, as you can see, 10 kilometers depth, and this is right here, again 10 kilometers, magnitude 6. And it's on the Delwood Seamount. Let's pull out so you can see Vancouver Island right there. And this is where we had the area of the 6.2 magnitude earthquake 13 hours before it hit Ridgecrest on July 4th, the 6.4. That was the precursor to the 7.1 that we had on July 5th. This happened in 2015 as well. We had a 6.2 here north of Vancouver Island, and it hit Ridgecrest at 24 hours later, with a moderate quake of about 3.5 magnitude from what I remember. This is the area. And if we go to our all past week slowly, all earthquakes. Okay, there we go. And this is the crack that I showed you before, running here this way and into New Madrid seismic. So that crack here, right there, running through Yellowstone, through Seattle, through Yellowstone, and ending here. And that's the Real Foot Rift Zone right there. And most likely, as we said from the past videos, these quakes, Kansas and Oklahoma, most likely are part of the mid-continental rift. There is magma under there, and the geologists don't know where it's coming from. They recently have theories that the magma from Baja, California, is connected to the West Coast high-threat volcano and Yellowstone. And if you see one of the videos I just made today, the geologist says that the Yellowstone mantle rock is what's going, feeding the California, North California and Oregon, Newberry and, was it Lassen volcano? I can't remember. Anyway, I don't think it's just those two. It must be more. Okay, anyway, this is what we have here. Okay, the 6.0 and the details of this. People have felt it. 5 people reported to USGS that they felt it. And let's go to the shake map so we can see the details of this. Okay, let's go to aerial so we can see much better what is happening right there. And to the shake maps, as you can see. Okay, British Columbia, that's a very big earthquake, as you can see. Let's go to population density. Oh, liquefaction estimates. Does it show up anywhere? Does it? I don't know. Okay, population density. It's not that populated, as you can see, basically around here at the south of Vancouver Island. Okay, and that's it right there. They don't show all of it, they only show the square, but if you extend it, it goes all the way this way, I guess. So you can understand how big it was. I hope it doesn't shake up, you know, when we have big earthquakes, strong earthquakes, they do jolt other faults, as the geologists of USGS have explained to us. Now, the tectonic summary, it's a subduction zone. If we go back to the, let's go back to the faults, if we could go to the US faults and see the, do they have, okay, it's right between the faults, as you can see there. Okay, that if you extend that, that goes all the way into California, as we can see right there. Right there, Juan de Fuca plate, right there. That's what jolted and got to Ridgecrest, which was on the Garlic Fault. This area somehow is a subduction area. San Andreas takes up 75% of the pressure, and the Walker Lane fault system right here, which is a series of faults acting like one, takes up about 25% of the subduction pressure. San Andreas is locked with the Garlic Fault, and it looks like, because these areas here are a series of faults, is Ridgecrest that felt the shaking of the 6.4 to 7.1 in July. And it had done that again in 2015. All right, so going back to the history, the seismotectonics, offshore British Columbia and southeastern Alaska and the vicinity. All this here, all this axis-wise, as you can see. Okay, going back to the Canadian map, this is it right here. Okay. Tectonics of Pacific margin of North America between Vancouver and south central Alaska are dominated by the northwest motion of the Pacific plate, this way, northwest, with respect to the North American plate at a velocity of a whopping 15 millimeters a year. In the south this mapped region, convergence between northern extent of the Juan de Fuca plate, known as the Explorer microplate, and North American plate dominate. North from Explorer, Pacific, and North American plate, triple junction, Pacific North America motion is accommodated by 650 kilometer long Queen Charlotte fault system, right here. Offshore of Hydra, Golet, and to the southwest, the oblique of the Pacific North America plate motion vectors creates a transpressional regime and the complex mixture of strike slip and convergent underthrusting tectonics. And north of the Hydra Golet Islands, plate motion is roughly parallel to the plate boundary, resulting in almost pure dextral strike slip motion along the Queen Charlotte Fault. To the north, the Queen Charlotte Fault splits into multiple structures, continuing offshore of southeastern Alaska as the Fairweather Fault and branching east to the Chatham Strait and Denali faults. The Denali earthquake was one of the big ones that we had recently in Alaska, very destructive. The plate boundary north and west of Fairweather Fault ultimately continues to the Alaska Aleutian subduction zone, where the Pacific plate lithosphere subducts beneath North American plate at the Aleutian's Trench. The transition is complex and involves intraplate structures such as the transition fault. The Pacific margin offshore British Columbia is one of the most active seismic zones in North America, hosting a number of large earthquakes historically. At the south extent of the mapped region offshore Vancouver Island is the complex triple junction North America Juan de Fuca, which includes the Explorer and Winona microplates, and Winona microplate experiences little relative motion in respect to North America. Northern extent, the Explorer microplate tracks North American plate motion, but is subducting at a rate of 2 centimeters a year. That's pretty fast. Near its southern extent, adjacent to the Nootka Fault. The Explorer microplate heavily deformed by internal dextral faulting, experiencing frequent moderate-sized earthquakes. During period 1973-2013, this 30-kilometer wide area experienced 50 quakes bigger than 5 magnitude. The largest of these was 6.7, April 6, 1992. January 5th, 2008, 6.6 and 6.4 struck the same region just 40 minutes apart and were separated by less than 20 kilometers along the southeast-northwest trend. So, Queen Charlotte Fault trends, Triple Junction region. The largest earthquake observed in Queen Charlotte Fault was 8 magnitude in 1949, 25 kilometers west of north tip of Hydra Golet, the earthquakes, creating minor fault-fueled tsunami, uncommon occurrence for strike slip faults. The 1970 6.8 earthquake that ruptured 30 kilometers south tip of Hydra Golet was one of the, to say that 10 times, was one of the first largest magnitude events in the area to be recognized as having a significant thrust component. Recently, magnitude 7.8 Hydra Golet earthquake struck to the south-central portion of the islands October 28, 2012. Oblique thrust faulting triggered locally significant tsunami, and only 4 months later, 2013, the large strike slip earthquake of 7.5. So that was, you see, that was, they were, I guess, related, they're trying to say, occurring a few hundred kilometers farther north. So we do have big earthquakes happening there, as you can see. Now, near the northern terminal of Fairweather Fault, northwest trending, fault marks the boundary between the Yakutat terrain and Pacific Plate. Yakutat terrain, igneous plateau, began to subduct at a low angle beneath continental North America about 30 to 35 million years ago. Though the Yakutat terrain subducts slightly slower than the Pacific Plate, its convergence direction has slightly more westerly trend, causing compressional deformation along the transition fault to increase towards the northwest. Now, the Gulf of Alaska shear zone hosted a sequence of large earthquakes between 1987 and 1992, consisting of 5 events, magnitude 6.8 or larger, 3 of which were 7.8, 7.9, and 7.9. Within the greater Queen Charlotte Fault region, excluding Alaska-Aleutian Island subduction zone, more than 150 quakes of magnitude 5 or greater have occurred between 1973 and 2013, with only a small fraction of these events rupturing at depths greater than 25 kilometers. Earthquake epicenters along the Queen Charlotte Fault express east-westerly asymmetry, the majority of seismicity occurring towards the eastern slope of the marine terrace near the definition of Queen Charlotte Fault trace. And this can be explained by an east-tipping fault plane, evident in moment tensor data for moderate to large earthquakes within the transform fault zone. So this is an area, as we can say, that has had quite a large number of earthquakes. I hope this is the last of it. But as we said, this sometimes does shake other faults. I hope that this does not give another pressure release to where it usually does around Ridgecrest. And all of you there, please be very careful on the West Coast. I wish you all a wonderful, blessed, happy, joyous, and healthy Christmas season. God bless you all. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.